But I
Really?
think that the cost of savings pales in comparison to what it would cost, and then, what it would cost cities and towns across the country. I think the number, I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it's something about 250 billion that would be saved over a decade. But of course that's almost, it's like a fourth of what what the cost would be.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Disclaimer time. This is where I tell everyone to lighten up. It's just a podcast. Trading is like that roller coaster at the amusement park. Thrilling, unpredictable, and potentially stomach-churning. What works for one person might leave another clutching their hat in the wind. Our hosts and guests, they're awesome, knowledgeable, full of insights, but we're not financial advisors. So don't rush to make any investment decisions based solely on our banter. Always consult with a professional or do your own research. Plus, let's face it, we like to have fun, laugh, enjoy the trading ride together. It's all in the name of good podcasting fun. So remember, take it easy, don't bet the farm, and keep your seatbelts on at all times. Thank you for listening. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the China Shop, home of the Band of Traders podcast. My name is Kyle. I'm your host today, and joining me, I've got Ian Cain, the Quincy City Council president and founder of Qubic Labs. I recently had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Cain last September at the Boston Blockchain event, and I will put those links in the episode description. Speaking of Boston Blockchain, I've heard that this year is going to be a whole lot bigger than last year. Is that true?
Yeah, of course it will. Yeah, things only get bigger, especially our conference.
Especially in Boston.
Excited. Yeah, especially Boston. Yeah, we're in active planning mode right now, building our program out and getting our sponsors in. So we're excited. The dates are September 9 to 11 this year. Mm-hmm. In Kilroy Square. Be there, be square. Check us out, bostonblockchainweek.com.
Nice. So the reason why I invited you out here is a little bit different than the Boston Blockchain event, although I would like to talk a little bit about that maybe if we have some time at the end.
Sure.
But I've been following your posts on LinkedIn, and you've been on a bit of a crusade, shall we say, for municipal bonds and keeping them tax-free. And, I got to say, I was actually really surprised that this was even something that's even being considered.
I was too. In fact, I did not know that it was on the chopping block. I had no idea that this was going back to the Tax and Jobs Cuts Act of 2017, and that currently Republicans would be considering taking this off the table for municipalities and those investors who get the tax-exempt benefits that are provided for a lower cost of capital for our municipalities. But it was back in the fall. So there's I guess some publications that come through my emails, and this one was on the city one in a group called the National League of Cities, which I had been reading some of their stuff before, but never really made a connection to it. But there was a compelling article about the tax-exempt bond status being in jeopardy. And so I reached out to the author of the article, and her name's Dante Moreno. She works with National League of Cities, and we had a call, and she told me all about this issue and how it's a big deal. And I recognized that it was a big deal, understanding, how much cities and towns, including the city of Quincy, use the municipal bond markets to borrow money in order to do roadway work, sidewalks, roadways, underground infrastructure, sewer mains, water mains, build new schools, build fire stations, build police stations, equip them. So, this is a big deal. This is how we grow, outside of the direct taxation mechanism. Of course, that goes into debt service, but at least the cost of capital is much lower than it would be if you were to go to the traditional capital markets.
How much revenue does maybe the city of Quincy, or as an example, how much revenue do they generate from the issuance of bonds on an annual basis?
I guess you're not necessarily generating revenue.
Yeah, revenue is the wrong term, I should say. How many projects I funded, I guess.
Many of our projects. So I don't have a number for you. I know last year we bonded, or will go to market this year. We approved an appropriation for, I think, $120 million construction for a new public school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important one. The school is 100 years old. This project will last 100 years. We do capital improvement plans on a 5-year basis. And so those are multi-$100 million bond authorizations. Yeah. That governs the repaving and, as I said, the infrastructure of streets.
Was the pension obligation bond a municipal bond too? Did that fall under that?
That was issued. The pension obligation is a municipal bond. So
that was like a $500,000 one, or $500 million.
$500 million. It was $475 million. I voted against that, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And I thought that it was a big number.
Yeah.
And I just I know Eric's very proud of that transaction, and as he should be. It's a big project, but I wasn't comfortable taking that level of risk and using a liability to fund a liability anyway. But so this is what's going on, and no one's talking about it. This isn't a sexy issue, so no one.
I've seen nothing in my news feed on this. And I pay attention to a lot of stock market financial related stuff, and I've seen nothing on this.
Yeah. I mean, you would think that the people out there protesting Teslas and all this would
pick up on this one.
Yeah, would find something maybe a little more meaningful. But in 2023 alone, across the municipal bond market, there were about $400 billion worth of bonds issued.
Wow.
And so, it's estimated, I think, out into about 2031 that there's probably, at least if there are no changes to this tax exempt status, there would probably be about $3 trillion worth more bonded. I mean, this is how cities and towns do their growth and capital spending.
Wait, so you're saying if this doesn't change, then that's what it will grow to.
Then it would that's what it'll grow to. Yeah. Okay. And if it does change, then over the next decade, the borrowing costs of cities and towns across the country will go up by $1 billion. Okay,
that's the question I was going to ask. Yeah,
and that means that either it'll be affected through your property taxes, right? Your utility bills, tolls, what have you, or projects just getting canceled outright because you won't be able to afford them.
So I'm going to try to think through the actual effects of this. If you were going to issuance. The people that would typically be bidding on this, they're the ones who get the tax-free exemption, right? The ones who purchase the obligations?
That's correct. They don't need to pay tax on the interest of the bonds.
Right. So if they lose that tax exemption, then they're basically taking a haircut on whatever their return is. And I'm guessing the way that these are priced is probably very, very... There's probably not a whole lot of room to just suddenly take off like another 20 or 15%. Off of the return.
No, it's a pretty steady investment anyway, as an asset class. But investors would lose. They would probably be diminished interest for participating,
and they're not the ones that shoulder that cost. Is I guess the point I'm trying to get at. It's going to be
absolutely. It would be people, residents, people that own homes.
City.
Yeah. And then, of course, it would be passed through to renters as well for larger property owners.
Yeah. Why is this come under scrutiny then? Why is this even on the table?
I think, in years past, there was an idea that this could potentially save the federal government some hundreds of billions of dollars, which I think is accurate, at least in the,
maybe in the short term.
No, it would be over a 10-year period, but really? I think that the cost of savings pales in comparison to what it would cost, and then, what it would cost cities and towns across the country. I think the number, I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it's something about $250 billion that would be saved over a decade. But of course, that's almost, it's like a fourth of what what the cost would be. Right.
So what effect do you think this would have on the local government's ability to raise funds then, if they were no longer... If municipal bonds lost their efficiency or effectiveness, then what's the next step then? What is the government going to have to do then to raise its funds? You mentioned property taxes and other things like that, but...
Yeah, well, governments, municipalities, cities and towns raise their funds through taxation, whether it's residents, whether it's through commercial businesses, personal property. And so, I mean, it depends on what if you're not a thriving city or town. Obviously,
Right.
Places in major metropolitan areas might be better off, especially if they have room to grow. I know that a lot of the growth that we're seeing in a place like Quincy, which is next to Boston, we've been seeing a lot of residential growth, mostly through large multifamily complexes. I don't think that all areas of the country are blessed with that type of growth, or have that type of growth. And with murky sort of economic visions, right? You don't know what's going to happen. Where a business is locating, where are they growing, where are they going to need people? So, I mean, I think it would really grind cities and towns down over the short to mid term. If they're not able to adequately replace infrastructure, especially if they're going to have to continue to tax residents at higher rates in order to make that happen.
This, when I worked in the steel industry, one of the things that was really hard to get upper management to understand was that the spend on things like maintenance and maintaining your equipment, you can save money in the short term and not see an effect. Like maybe for a year, maybe for 6 months, maybe even up to 2 to 3 years. But if you continue to not make those improvements, that becomes a much, much bigger hole to dig yourself out of the longer you continue to cut that spending off. So when I hear things like infrastructure becoming under the ability of the local government to be able to spend on infrastructure becomes a huge sticking point to me, because that is something that can get out of hand really quickly when you start to neglect it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, there are a lot of essential services that are provided through cities and towns. If you're not on a sort of regional or otherwise electricity system, the local local access to electricity, water systems. I mean, you have seen it played out in the media over the last decade or so. Areas like in Michigan that their systems have been eroding, and that's not uncommon. I think in many parts of the country, especially in the older parts of the country, like the East Coast. We have spent again a lot of money, millions of dollars, in updating old pipes, old corroded pipes.
Right. I had to do some of that in my basement.
Right. Yeah. Right. Think about you think about it like your house. Sure.
Let's talk about another project then that's going on. I saw that you guys, I think, recently just got the Quincy broadband initiative going.
If you say 7 years is recent, then sure, I'll say that's recent. But we started this initiative 7 years ago. This was something that came out of conversations with residents, and they were, I was hearing over and over again that people were displeased with Comcast service, really. And Comcast is the only, we've got Verizon DSL, but nobody's buying DSL.
No.
People want, good internet. So they're complaining about Comcast service and price. And I heard of cities and towns that had been deploying their own municipal broadband or fiber networks. And I just started looking into models. I asked the mayor and his team if they'd be interested in kind of diving a little deeper, and they were interested, which was great. And so we started looking at models and what we could do. We early on got attracted to what's called a dynamic open access model, which is that the city, constructs, owns, and operates a municipal fiber network, and then you add a sort of a software layer on top that allows internet service providers to compete on that line and to offer resident services at competing rates. So that is the marketplace, and it also has really dynamic capacity with being able to create multiple channels for different purposes, right? Especially for city services or for different communication methods for emergency reasons and purposes as well.
That's so it's like you guys actually laid out all the infrastructure, all the fiber points, and that now you're letting the internet service providers come and use that and discount. That basically discounts the rates of all your constituents then at that point, right?
That's correct. And so we made a policy decision that digital infrastructure, or fiber in this case, is essential infrastructure. That having this now is, obviously you need water for life, but this is a different aspect of life that you do need internet for. I mean, internet is ubiquitous. It's part of everybody's life. You work, you educate, you learn, you communicate. And, having access to the digital economy, the job market, I mean, it's essential that you have access to high quality internet service, and especially that's affordable, for those in low and moderate income families that might not be able to. And so we took this concept to the public, which, was received very well. We put out a survey in, I want to say 2020, in our city census, and 80%, we got 14,000, I think, respondents. We've got a city of 100,000 people. We've got a ton of respondents, and it was a paper fill back, mail it back. But 80% of those respondents were overwhelmingly favorable. So we knew we had a positive public mandate to move forward. So we worked with a company based in Utah called Entry Point Networks, who they provide this dynamic open access layer, and they also have been acting as project managers for this project for the city of Quincy. And they've walked us through the process. They had rolled out and developed projects like this across the country, especially and most notable in a town called Ammon, Idaho, which, according to Fast Company magazine, has the best internet in the country. So we said, we like this model. Let's move forward with this. And it's an infrastructure project. It's a large scale infrastructure project. So it's taken a while. And, we have put together master plans. We have understood sort of the cost considerations. We hired an engineering firm a couple of years ago to start to do high and low level design of the network across the city. We identified 2 areas that would serve as pilots based on sort of like diverse economic status, socioeconomic status. And right now we're at least getting to that close to shovel in the ground phase, because we're almost finished with the RFQ, RFP to start collecting bids for construction. In order to finance this project, you finance it on the subscribers, right? So you finance it based on the revenues that are picked up by the subscribers. And so the model, by the way, which I don't think I touched on, is that the people who subscribe for this pay for it, they would be, becomes a betterment to their property. It's like a water pipe. So it'll be paid for on a monthly basis for the life of the bond, which, will probably be about 20 years, and ends up being about $20 a month. And then that sticks with the property. So there's value that's created through that. So for each subscriber, once we hit a certain what's called take rate, which is a, percentage of subscribers that you need to make this cost favorable, I think it's somewhere between 30 and 40% range, then it makes it an economical project and you'd continue to move forward. So, we're excited to, and just like the old cable business, like cable business is a door-to-door business. Comcast roots is in going door-to-door and selling cable. Right. That's what we have to do to sell subscribers.
Really?
So so you're going to go door-to-door, and a firm was just picked to start doing that marketing. Yeah. And ideally we get, one, the state approves our desire to float a revenue bond, because they have to give us approval to do this. And then we come back to the council, approve a revenue bond, and we get out there and start selling and start digging.
What's the difference between a revenue bond and another municipal bond that funds some of these other infrastructure projects?
So the general obligation bond, what it's called, is basically the city agrees to take out a certain percentage of debt, and then the debt service is covered within the annual budget, right? Okay. So it's a direct tax on residents. The revenue bond is, for this instance, the revenue will come from the subscribers who commit to this project, and the debt service will be paid down by those subscribers.
Right. Does the tax-exempt status of the municipal bonds, does that put this in jeopardy, or is that going to fall into some different buckets?
Well, you say jeopardy. I'm come hell or high water. This project's happening. So this is, but it would change the cost of capital, though. That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, there are a couple ways that some of these projects are financed, right? So there are private institutions, private sort of debt funds or credit or that invest in public infrastructure, right? You do a sort of a public-private partnership. We wanted to make sure that we owned the asset outright, the municipality, to keep the value there. So, we've chosen to do that. But obviously the cost of capital in all those situations, because with the case of the people you would do a public-private partnership with, the cost of capital would be higher because they're seeking greater returns on their investment. Yeah.
Right. So talk to me then about, let's say that the worst case happens and municipal bonds do lose their tax-exempt status. Last April, I talked to Eric Mason and Rick Kosha about the blockchain-based bond that you guys launched. That was the trial, historic, first of its kind in the U.S., but if that continues to pick up traction, could the savings of that potentially be enough to offset the losses from losing that tax-exempt status?
That's a great question. I was thinking about something like that earlier. Not knowing all the details and what the savings actually were in that particular transaction or any transaction.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think there are any yet, because first of its kind is more just proving the technology. But
right.
As people would pick up, it should start to see more.
Right. But I mean, I'm sure there would be nominal savings in the transaction reduction, but cost. But I think. I think it would end up being the same, especially if you're doing it on a private platform like the city did, which was with JP Morgan.
The Onyx platform?
Yeah. Because I think essentially what they're trying to replicate is everything the same that it would be in the traditional finance market, just with this digital, replication of data.
Yeah.
But who knows, depending, I mean, there's still a lot in play at the federal government with how different types of digital assets are going to be categorized. I mean, there was a talk on eliminating capital gains for your Bitcoin. I don't necessarily see that
Can't
happening.
imagine
But
that.
yeah, right. But yeah, no, I think it would be nominal. I think it would all be the same.
Yeah. I mean, that was just, as I'm thinking through this, I'm thinking that might be one way where you guys can hopefully kind of keep things the same. I was hoping that would end up being able to allow you guys to fund some more projects, but
it would really force cities and towns into a place to prioritize a lot of things.
Right.
History isn't just boring names and dates. It's weird, messy, and full of what were they thinking moments. The Buck Starts Here dives into the financial fiascos, questionable deals, and outright chaos that helped build America, $1 at a time. We mix in serious history from a fresh perspective, real, deep dives into the numbers and the moments that shaped the country, without the boring lecture. From presidential blunders to almost states, and the time an international war almost started over a pig, we break down the key events that made, and nearly broke, the nation. It's the fascinating, untold history you won't find in the textbooks. Subscribe to the Buck Starts Here podcast for a deeper look at presidential history that's anything but dull.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is to just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. What can I do if I want to make my voice heard then? Like, who can I reach out to?
Great question. You can reach out to your members of Congress, especially if they're Republicans. Republicans control Congress right now, both houses. And this is something that was considered by the Republicans. I think this is a measure that is being considered by the Ways and Means, and I don't think it's currently out there. It's just something that is potentially to be thrown on the table. Mm-hmm. Anecdotally, I've heard from our member of Congress that it's currently not on the table, which is a very good thing, but it's still something that requires action, and so I was with the National League of Cities and a federal advocacy team about 3 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. We're meeting with the Massachusetts delegation just to share information about this issue. And of course, they're all Democrats. So they said, well, you got to find your friends with Republicans. So if you have Republican members of Congress, please write to them, please call them, encourage them not to put this on the table, and make sure that we protect the tax-exempt status of municipal bonds. The National League of Cities has been doing a phenomenal job. There's a couple other organizations, the Public Finance Network, and I'll share some of these sort of primary resource documents in the Government Finance Officers Association, so that you can read more about the importance of this situation.
Luckily, though, we don't have to make something happen by like the end of the month or anything like that, though.
No,
right?
it's
okay,
not.
good.
No, it's not like that. But it still is worthwhile spreading the word, because each conversation I have with people about this, they're just as surprised as I was to learn that this was a thing.
Yeah, I don't want this going on the table. I don't want to be having to call somebody up to get it off the table. I'd rather make that call now before it gets on there to let them know, like, hey, we're not going to stand for this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are there any other things in that bill that maybe we should be paying attention to?
No, but I want to put that. So, we talked about the almost $1 trillion, what the borrowing cost would be over the next decade if that happened. So individually, right, what that would do for every American household is add about $6,554.67.
Yeah, that's not an easy swing.
Right.
Okay, let's not do that if we can.
Yes, correct. We're not going to.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Boston Blockchain then again.
Sure.
Since we got that coming up again, I noticed that you guys launched an accelerator program. Like, what else has Qubic Labs been doing? Because you guys have been just launching all kinds of cool initiatives and programs lately.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm glad you've noticed. That means that our marketing and social media has been working. But we we had started the organization in 2019, and we kind of had this loose incubator model where we worked with companies on a semi-regular basis. We would do check-ins. We had some people working out of the office space, but we didn't have this sort of finite period of an accelerator cohort. And so we had brought on a program manager over a year ago who had come from the accelerator space and had built accelerator cohorts before. So we went into that model, and he even when Rinaldi has done an awesome job. We put out applications for this reconstituted program in November. It was the end of November, and we had them open until the end of January. We had over 200 applicants for the program, which was really cool, from all around the world. And we ended up selecting 11 companies.
I was also really excited to see some of the people you hired to be the mentors. You got Ken Mooney who joined, Yuri Cadaldo. Yeah. Like a lot of those guys I really enjoyed talking to, and I met them at Boston Blockchain last year.
No, that's great. I forgot they've been on your podcast. And I mean, that's been one of the better things, is that Boston Blockchain Week serves as a pipeline not only for companies that work with us, but mentors and advisors that come and take part in our program. So it's this nice little flywheel that we've got working. But the program's wonderful. It's a 12-week hybrid program. It's 10 weeks virtual, 2 weeks. Everyone's coming to Quincy at the end of April in the first week of May. And every day there's some sort of content, whether it's about sales and marketing, go-to-market strategy, legal aspects, compliance, accounting, finance, venture, pitching. And so it's a very busy program. And when they get here, there's going to be jam-packed full of days, that culminate in a demo day on Friday, May 9th, which we're excited for. If anyone's interested, please reach out. We're happy to send an invite. And, but yeah, that program's been great. We're excited, to meet all of our founders and teams in person. And then, on the other hand, we're just, as I said, we're building out the program and our sponsors for Boston Blockchain Week, and we're excited to host that again. This is our 4th week running this program, and I mean, you were there last year. You saw it. It's good vibes, good people.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. I thought you're almost a little bit too big for it last year.
Yeah,
for Kilroy.
I appreciate that. We understand our growing pains, and we'll have to do a rethink for 26, but we'll certainly get the most out of it for 25. And this year's theme, we're trying to edge closer to the AI realm that everyone is really consumed in. So it's a concept of where blockchain meets AI. And, we'll have some, we're not announcing any of the program, components yet, but we do have, some cool sponsors lining up. Of course, the City of Quincy's coming in, and we've got, Bitcoin.com is a media partner for us, which is great. We're excited to have them out there.
Okay. Oh man. Jeez. You guys are really picking up then, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, we are. Yeah.
So what goes into getting the accelerator program? Like, who's that for? It sounds like you're teaching like almost like an accelerated business class.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's people, we're looking for startup founders who, in this case, are building businesses around blockchain technology and are looking for tools and network and ecosystem to connect with in order to help them take their business to the next level. So it's people that have not raised a considerable amount of venture or other type of financing. It's maybe people that have an early product or service with not too much revenue yet, and that's we're providing people with a suite of a bench of talent to be able to learn from, and with access to capital as well, because a lot of these people that are participating in our advisory, and
most of them are angel investors themselves.
Yeah, a lot of them are angel investors, and we've got venture capitalists, formal venture capitalists as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Has anyone made it out of the accelerator program and launched yet?
I mean, so all these companies are launched.
Okay.
Yeah, all the companies are launched. So the companies are incorporated. They have at least a baked concept, probably some product development,
Right. Okay.
So it's, we're not synthesizing, life here.
It's not
necessarily.
Yeah, it's not a startup. It's
it's
like
an early stage startup.
Yeah,
it's an early stage startup. I think even probably more in the R&D program that we've been running over the last couple of years, you'd probably have just a bit earlier than these early stage startups, but, folks who are seeking to prove out their pilots or minimum viable products with these non-dilutive grants that we've been giving out.
Yeah. Must be real nice being right next to MIT too.
Yeah. No,
Right.
we've got some good relationships over there. I mean, Boston's a great place, right? It's
Right.
knowledge, there's capital. I think the crypto or blockchain center has been shifting a lot. I think Miami had it during COVID.
Yeah.
And then I think New York
made a push, but I don't think they ever really.
I think New York is where it's at now.
You think?
Yeah.
I feel like it's got the wrong vibe though. It feels like the crypto vibe and less the blockchain vibe.
There's still a lot of action taking place, and so the Boston. While we have all these components, there's still something missing.
Yeah.
Because you still have people going to that financial hub of New York, where there's a lot of activity.
We need to go get Kendrick Lamar or somebody to come. That's what you need. You need someone to go hang out at the clubs.
We do. We think about that all the time. And it has always been a cultural thing for us, because we recognize when people were running to Miami that clearly we were missing something here. So we wanted to be able to try through this event to try to, spark some vibe. And,
I like the vibe that you guys are building. When I was there, I very much enjoyed the just openness, the learning. It just felt like I didn't feel like I was walking into like that bro culture that sometimes you can get kind of sucked into with crypto.
No, I really appreciate that. And if you want to help us to accelerate that vibe here from Boston, let us know. We're looking for all types of partnerships.
Oh yeah, we can talk offline more about that. Now I think it's time for me to try to ruin this relationship with my next questions.
Oh God.
I hinted at this. So if you don't want to answer these, we can just skip that and we can wrap up. But lately, senators, House representatives have been getting scrutinized a lot for their amazing ability to pick stocks. Nancy Pelosi, for one, stands out. She gets a lot of the headlines, but she's far from the only one. Dan Crenshaw is another example that I was really kind of surprised to see. He's somebody that I used to really enjoy, but lately I've been kind of become a little disenfranchised with him. What are your thoughts on members of Congress being allowed to trade the markets? I remember you ran for senator. What was your plan if you were to get into there?
Well, I don't know if I had a plan. I certainly had a position, which was, I think it's just, it's nonsensical that people who are making such legislative decisions have the ability to still actively maintain portfolios that can somehow and sometimes do correlate with their activity in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure that I see the fortitude of members of Congress to change those aspects.
Unfortunately.
But, yeah, no, I do. I think it's a little crazy because, I think people, this is what's, people talk about all the time in different corners of social media, is how conflicts of interest and people's, certain interests getting in the way of their public service, right?
Yeah.
And I think it really diminishes the brand. It continues to diminish the brand and erode the confidence of people in public servants or politicians, however you want to look at them, when they continue to engage in such activity.
Is there anything that we can do to try to force their hand to make them, maybe make some changes? I know Unusual Whales does a really good job of publishing reports, and I can link that in the show notes of the most recent one.
Yeah, and the Pelosi tracker. That's another one.
That's another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer this, not Nancy Pelosi's husband's method. He says, just marry Speaker of the House, and then you can. That's his method.
My God. Yeah, I force the hand. Hey, if this is something that's meaningful to you, again, just like the bond issue, it's advocacy. And it's kind of what group can you really organize? Again, you should go down to the Tesla dealerships and recruit some of those people. I would think that they'd be. It's sort of a similar thing. I think they're trying to affect some livelihood of a person that's affiliated with the federal government, in a certain way.
That's a loose affiliation.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that personally.
Yeah.
I try to keep things apolitical.
Yeah, I don't know how you can avoid it. I think everything is tainted.
Well, is there anything else that you want to say while we got you on here? Is there going to be another run, hopefully, for you for either Senate or House one of these days?
We'll see. I really enjoyed the experience of running for U.S. Senate. Every day I woke up and I thought it was a true privilege to be able. It was kind of like, I'm running for Senate. This is crazy. It was great. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. I met a lot of great people, and I think by the time that this is released, I will have announced that I won't be running for city council again. So,
oh no,
I'm currently in this place where, I had sought another role to serve in a broader capacity, and that didn't work out. And so I don't want to just sit and keep the seat warm,
right.
when I might want to do more other things. And so I think it's time to let some fresh energy into the role.
Yeah. How long have you been in the position?
By the time I'm done, 10 years.
Yeah, that's a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
And I know with the Qubic Labs is growth. The growth of that, I'm sure, is probably making it a little harder to split your time between all your commitments too.
It is. Yeah, it is. And we've got great things going on here. So, we'll continue to grow and to do things and to build. It's really about building.
To build.
Yeah,
yes.
To build. We'll continue building.
It's not unusual you see your politicians building so much.
I know. And I like to build. And so it does get frustrating when building isn't so easy in particular environments, well, and you're not working with other builders,
right?
Because the profession doesn't necessarily require that you have the ability to build. It requires the ability to pander and to act. So,
man, how do you keep how do you not get so cynical when you?
I'm not cynical. I'm quite realistic about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I look at things as they are.
For me, I would be so cynical if I had that position or in that life for too long, I think.
Well, it's a lot of energy balancing. And I mean that because you've got people just have so many different perceptions of what's going on, and everything just feels so out of control. And so people, the way that they direct their issues at you, it's nothing personal. It's just general circumstances,
right?
It's just that's one side of it. But you say I try to stay apolitical. Everything has become permeated with politics, and I think it's unfortunate, that everything has now a color of politics. Sports used to be separate
Right.
from politics. But
They used to be the thing we can go to escape it. And
right. And
Yeah.
culture, every part of culture has now been permeated with politics. It is inescapable, which is a very frustrating thing. And I think it's a lot of what drives these clashes.
do you think some of that is because it seems like there's been so little willingness to engage between either side? Like it's almost become, when they say identity politics, like the politics is almost like your religion, and you can't admit that your religion is wrong, you know?
Well, you also can't admit that you're celebrating a religion.
Yeah, that's that too.
Right?
Right.
So, because I think people are largely unaware that they're subscribing to what would be considered a religion.
Mhm.
And I mean, I have developed a very acute theory about this over 10 years. And
I've
I
been
see,
thinking about that too. That's funny.
you know, what I see is that even in, the concept of God and religion has just changed a lot, at least in my lifetime, that I've seen. And I see that people do not engage with church or religion, or what used to be sort of a key cornerstone for community. And I think in the erosion of that concept in not only the public, but in people's lives, people have become very susceptible to the issue of the day, which are, I think, filler religions.
Mhm.
And so, you know, the identity thing, people take on these issues as their own. They embody them, you know, and I think that's because, and I'm not telling anyone that they need to go out and find God or religion to affiliate with,
Right.
but it is certainly about a deeper look into yourself, right? Because you got to understand what you're grabbing onto and what you're making your own, and what is probably somebody else's issue or interest that you are advancing, you know,
Right.
that might not actually benefit you at the end of the day. So, you know, I just think that more broadly, people are being manipulated in many different ways. Most people don't know it. And a lot of the ideas that people are espousing that they believe are their own are actually not.
Right. But where I struggle with is it feels like there's a lot more faith-based arguments in politics, and that's just so weird to me. Like, it used to be that science and like if you have an argument, you could point to facts and data and be like, this supports my argument, and people be like, okay, I see your point. Now it's like, those aren't my facts.
I don't think this is anything new, right?
No?
I mean, I think this is, if you understand history at all, isn't this how it's always played out?
You know, actually, I've been learning a lot of that through our new program with where we've been analyzing the history of the presidents, like starting from George Washington. We made our way to, I think we're up to Monroe right now, but John Adams, I didn't realize how contentious that John Adams-Jefferson election was. Like, yeah, you're right. Politics has always been contentious.
But that's just the politics. Like, you were talking about faith versus science.
Yes.
And, you know, let's talk about, you know, either the sun revolving around the earth or the earth revolving around the sun, or,
right.
You know, whatever's up there and what's down there. I mean, this is what we learned about in school. You know, I think that this is just the next iteration. It's now sort of much more base, I would say, right? It's certainly not, I don't think it's as thoughtful as it probably once was, but who knows? I don't know. I think it's similar. I just think that we're exposed to a lot more views through social media.
Yeah, I just wish people would be a little more willing to engage in those, like just taking a moment to experience those viewpoints for, you know,
well, it's
rather
tough
than just
to admit that you're wrong. And when your identity depends on it, you're going to defend it.
Yeah. So how do we fix that?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, what we can fix is we can fix keeping municipal bonds tax-free.
Yeah, exactly. Contact your local member of Congress about that.
So please join me in thanking Ian Cain for joining us today. If you do want to get in touch with your local representative, please do so. Tell him keeping municipal bonds tax-free is the way to go. Or you can also visit bostonblockchainweek.com if you want to register for September's event. I will be back soon with another exciting guest full of insights into how local government works. But until that day, like, share, subscribe, all the things, and have a green week. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial or investment advice and should not be construed as such. The hosts, guests, and contributors of this podcast are not licensed financial advisors, brokers, or professionals. Any trading or investment decisions made based on the content of this podcast are solely at the listener's discretion and risk. Trading and investing in financial markets carry inherent risks, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners should conduct their own research and seek advice from qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions. The views, opinions, and information shared in this podcast are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the podcast creators or associated organizations.
Produced by China Shop Productions.